Okay, hello everybody, welcome. So hi Jack, great to see you. And we have Russell and Ryan on as well, and Shannon. Great to see you guys. So today, I thought I would just talk a little bit about welcome to the Eros Talk. I said we could do it a little more informally today, and we didn't need a host and whatnot. So you just get me talking about me a little bit. And I thought I would tell a little bit. I don't know if you guys were, I think you guys were on last time I did one about 2 weeks ago. Were you? I told a bit of my story and how I came to be here. So I thought I could do a little bit more of that and then talk a little bit about something near and dear to my heart, which is service and what that means to me now, and what it's always meant to me and how it's been important in my life. It's a huge thing in Eros, and one thing that I really love is that it's very so I grew up and I always wanted to do good in the world. I was like, I talked about this, I think, a little bit, but I struggled with depression most of my life. And I always thought if only I did enough good in the world, I would start to feel good. That was the only issue. The issue was, it was both if I did enough good in the world, but it was also if everyone else in the world was happy. But as long as there was people unhappy or people suffering or all these big, I was young and didn't know that much, but if there was war or starvation or just any of those things, it's like, how dare I have joy? How dare I be happy if people are struggling with those things? And I'm not going to say never, but most likely aren't going to be issues that impact me in my life, or they're not issues that impacted me then. I grew up in a nice upper middle class family in the suburbs of Maryland. I had everything I needed and most things that I wanted. And, nice parents with good jobs and a brother and sister and 4 grandparents, all of the things. And it was like, how dare I be happy, instead of being like, wow, I have so much in my life. Like, how do I share it? And my thought was like, it was just this guilt or something of who am I to have so much? Who am I to have so much good fortune? I better suffer. I like, it's not fair. It's not right. I don't know where I got this idea from. I do remember one conversation with a family member once where there was some funny thing where like somebody was coming to visit and I was going to pick them up from the airport, and then their plane was late. And I was a nanny at the time. I borrowed my boss's car, and she would lend it to me some night. So I borrowed her car to go pick up this visitor, and then and they were the plane was delayed, and so it meant that it was going to be really late. So, or no, I think she was going to take. I was living in the Bay Area. She was going to take the BART to come to my house, and then the plane was late, and BART wasn't going to be running. So I borrowed my boss's car, and I said, I have to, it was my sister. I have to go pick up my sister tonight. And I worked really early. I was a nanny, so got to get up at like 6 a.m. And so I was going to be driving to San Francisco Airport at midnight or something to pick up my sister. But I was like thrilled. My sister was coming to visit. Like, I didn't care. So I got home from work. I took a nap so I would have enough rest so I could drive at midnight, all this stuff. And then it was like, I was talking to someone else in my family, and they were like, you're picking up your sister that late? Like, does she feel bad that you're doing it? I was like, I hope not. I hope she doesn't feel bad that I'm going to pick her up. I hope that she's thrilled that she's coming to visit me, and that like I found a way to come and pick her up, so that even though, we were young, like she doesn't have to spend money on a taxi to get from San Francisco to the East Bay. Like, of course I'd go pick her up. Like, should she feel bad? And it was just like this insistence on like, well, she should feel bad. And I was like, why? And it was like, well, people should feel bad. Like, people should feel bad if they ask something of others. And I'm like, she didn't ask anything of me. She said the BART isn't running. How, like, is there a shuttle, or like, should I take a taxi? And I was like, oh, I'll come get you. Like, I was thrilled to have something to offer. Luckily I had a very generous boss who's like, no problem, of course, take the car, of course, like, I'm glad your sister's coming, you know. And she could have been like, we're going to be up late driving, aren't you going to take care of it? She didn't care at all. She was like, great, of course. And so it was just this, but it was how in my family, that's how I grew up, was like, if you ask anything of anybody, even if you don't ask, if somebody offers something and you take them up on it, you should feel bad. And so that's how I grew up. And that's how I thought the world was like, don't ask a lot. You already have so much. You should feel bad for taking anything. And so, like, of course I felt bad. Like, I had this life that was, you know, had all the things that one would think they would want with, you know, my, you know, I went to private school, I took ballet classes. Like, there was never anything that I couldn't, you know, I didn't like want extravagant things as a child. I wasn't like super spoiled, but at the same time, if I needed anything, I always had it. And so, yeah, it was just like, I should feel bad for that. I was just like deep in there somewhere. And that, how dare I be happy? How dare it just be like a joyous thing that my sister's coming to visit, and that I found a way to pick her up so that it's easy on her. And I wouldn't, and the other thing is that I wouldn't have said, why don't I get you, unless I genuinely wanted to, which maybe wasn't true a lot of my life, because, you know, again, kind of like, you do things because you're supposed to, not because you want to. And so then how do you ever know? How do you ever know if somebody's doing something because it's what they want versus what they think they should do, or what a good person does? And like, that's like, well, everything I do is to be a good person. And so my whole life, it was just like, well, how am I ever going to be happy until everyone is happy? I already have so much. I don't deserve to. I should feel bad. And so, you know, I mentioned this last time, but I taught for 5 years in the Bronx elementary school, special ed, in like the high needs schools, in one of those programs. Iris is from the Bronx, so she knows. And I did the New York City Teaching Fellows, which takes people who have no background in teaching, and you get like 6 weeks of training over the summer. And then they put you and you teach summer school and take classes. And then while you're teaching the first 2 years of your career, you're going to classes and taking courses, and you have a mentor and everything to get your master's degree. So we're like people who have no idea what we're doing. And then they put you in the worst schools in the city. And, you know, and the idea is take, you know, people that are either did very well in college, or people who are coming from other careers, but like people with some proven track record of success, and let's turn the schools around kind of thing. And then they just throw you in there. So I was like, okay, this is how I will finally be happy, is I will do something good in the world. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the resources to do that. You know, I was just like, whoa, all I'm doing is like surrounding myself in a whole other, you know, like I knew that I had a lot, and I knew that I had more than a lot of people. And then it was like, okay, I am coming to face with the different reality of how I grew up and how a lot of other people grow up. And guess what? It didn't suddenly make me feel a lot better. And I wasn't saving a whole lot of lives. Like, I know I had a positive impact. And, you know, I had one student who I was so dedicated. You know, like, I like to work, and I really, really worked. You know, people sometimes think like teaching, that's an easy job. It's like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And like, it can be, but also, you know, I would lesson plan until 8 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'd be at school until dark, until the principal would be like, you can't stay in the Bronx this late. You got to get on the subway back to Manhattan, kind of thing. And you know, so I had my little success stories, and these 2 little twins that were in my class, identical twins, named, they had Kenny and Kenneth. They were both named after their father, who was absent in their life. And they had such severe speech problems. They could only say 1 syllable. So they were Ken and Ken, and they couldn't, you know, they couldn't express themselves, and they couldn't whatever. And they came in halfway through the school, or a couple months into the school year, and they were in this, I was a special ed teacher, and they didn't have, their paperwork was late. So I never saw their paperwork, but I have these 2 kids, and they can't barely talk, and they can't read, and they can't really do anything. And I was like, okay, I'm going to teach them. And so I, you know, I just slowly started to just try anything. we would do one letter a week, and I would just work with these two, and just like in little, they would like I would write a P, and we would practice the P all day long. And every time I'd see them, I'd be like, and they'd be like, P, pocket. And we would just go over and just try anything. And parent teacher conference, the mom comes in and she's crying. And she said the doctors told her that they were missing the gray matter in their brain, which meant they couldn't have any short-term memory, which meant they would never be able to learn anything. And they suddenly knew their alphabet. They could read their letters. They could write their letters. They knew their letters. She's like, what did you do? And I was like, well, good thing their paperwork was delayed, because I had no idea they were diagnosed never learn anything children. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, even if I saw that paperwork, I still would have tried, but I didn't see their paperwork. And so, I was just like, okay, here are children. What can I do? And so I just like worked my butt off with anybody that came in that door to like teach them as much as I could. But it was hard. It was hard. And it was, in the school system, it was an inclusion class, which is supposed to be 40% special ed kids and 60% gen ed kids, and 2 teachers, so that the special ed teacher can kind of work with the special ed kids as needed, but they're also in an environment of other learners and other kids. And they kind of, so they're not like secluded with only kids that have difficulty. But what wound up happening a lot was they were like, oh, any kid that came in that had any trouble, either learning or behavioral or anything, just throw them in that class. They have 2 teachers, they can handle it. So we had our like 40% technically special ed, and then another 40% of the class was like, we don't know what to do with these kids, but they're not classified as anything. And so and then the class was like 30 kids in this tiny classroom infested with mice. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I am trying everything I can. And it was actually a really fascinating environment to work in some regards, because they were kindergarten. And so the kid, and this is something so beautiful about children, was that they were young. They were 4 and 5 years old when they started in that class. And we had all these kids of different abilities and different social skills. And, one kid, if he got really upset, he'd crawl under the table and he'd hold onto the table legs and he'd just scream. And the other kids would just be like, oh, do you need anything? And just check on him. And then sometimes, if a kid from another class was visiting, they'd be like, what's wrong with that weirdo? And they'd be like, what do you mean? He's just having a hard day. Let's go see if he needs anything. And they were just so understanding in this way, because they were 4 and 5 when they met each other. They didn't care. There was nobody that was weird. I remember one day, this kid who was from Nigeria, he came in like a traditional Nigerian dress. He was a boy. And he walked in the door and everybody's eyes kind of fell. And somebody goes, why are you wearing a dress? And another kid goes, it's a boy dress. And they were all like, oh yeah, it's a boy dress. And this was like, 20, I'm old now. It's like 22 years ago or something, when, there wasn't a lot of the boy girl issues that there are today. And like boys for sure were not wearing dresses to school. And it was suddenly just like, oh, it's a boy dress. Everybody was totally cool with it. And it was just this way of like, who cares? Like, we're kids, we're doing kid things. And I just love that, because like older grades, when they tried to mix the classes up, they did not have that experience. They were like, you're weird. But it's like something that's socialized into us at such a young age. 4 and 5, not that young, those kids could still just see people as people. And it's like that thing that's inside of us that's just like humanity and love and connection, and it doesn't care about the difference. Like, whatever, some people are different than other people, but we're all kids and we're all here and we're all people and we love each other, kind of thing. And that a year or 2 later, they're already socialized out of that, but like that natural thing that we're all born with. And it was so wild and kind of fascinating to see that difference and that change in just such a year or 2 time. But to have witnessed that as a teacher of just like the humanity of people, of kids, and how they could see each other. So anyways, that was a little sidetrack, but it was hard. A lot of the kids, came in, they had abuse. There was a lot of kids in foster care, kids that didn't have, one kid who only spoke English, and he was in his foster mom only spoke Spanish. And you're like, what? Why? He's 4 years old and he can't talk to his foster mom, and just like crazy things. So anyways, this did not help me be happier. I thought this was going to help me be happier because I was going to be saving the world, and I was getting more tired and more anxious and working my little butt off to try to save the world. And I did not have the resources to do that. And, but I was just like, it'll just get harder until it gets better. And then one day I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not going to make it. And so I left and I went traveling around the world. I took this big 1.5 year long trip. I had taught at an orphanage in Cambodia and seen that there was just, I think I told this story last time, but I'd seen that there were people who were in worse situations than me and were happy, like genuinely had joy in their life. I taught this one guy, I asked him in Cambodia, he was one of our like tuk-tuk rickshaw drivers outside of my guest house. And he was, I was just like, why are you happy? I don't understand. And he said, well, up until 10 years ago, I would go to bed at night. And when I woke up in the morning, someone I knew would have died because we were at war forever. We were just at war. So why wouldn't I be happy? And I was like, well, there's a lot of reasons not to be happy. You can be unhappy because you don't think you make enough money, or you live in a walk-up apartment on the 5th floor and it's small, and you know, your favorite sushi restaurant is closed for the night, or the bar is too crowded and you had to stand, or you had to wait, like the subway, you had to wait for an extra train. Like the list of complaints that me and my friends as teachers in New York had was just endless. That's how we communicated. Life was who can top each other with the most complaints. That's all we had. No wonder I was miserable. And so then I'm just like, you literally live outside on a mat that you hang a mosquito net around, and you drive a tuk-tuk, and you are nice and kind and have joy. I am missing something. And so on that trip, that's when I found, I first heard about Om. I started doing yoga first, and it just changed everything. I was like, oh, wow, there's a quietness I can find inside of myself that I didn't know existed. It was the first experience I had of actually kind of entering my body, was in this yoga practice that I did, where those voices that I just thought were endless, that I just thought were there no matter what, and you couldn't escape them. They were just part of whatever. That was it. That was it. Life was the little voices in your head that never shut up, and they are not nice a lot of the time, and they are not fun, and they are endless. And I didn't know I didn't know that some people don't have them, or that there was a way not to have them, or that I could not have them, that I could get away from them. And then in this yoga practice this day, I was like, it was this type of yoga where you hold postures for a very long time. So I was in a forward fold for about 10 minutes. And all of a sudden I was like, what's happening? I was just like, what on earth is happening? And then I was like, oh my God, my mind shut up. My mind just shut up. And I was just inside of my body, and I could feel we learned a lot of the energetics of the posture, and, you know, the earth energy from the ground comes up through your feet, and then it cycles over through your body, and it flushes out all of the negative energy, or the stuck energy, and purifies your root chakra, and then it flows down into the earth through your hands. It just does. And I was just like, I could just feel it. And I'd never had that feeling before. And the result was, when my, you know, root chakra was purified, I didn't have anxiety for a moment, just a moment. It was just like this brief moment in time, but it was enough for me to be like, wait a second, there is another way of living possible. That voice isn't mandatory. It stopped for a few seconds. I am going to find that. So now I had like two things. I had like, wait, people with much worse circumstances than me have joy in their life. And I had a moment where this voice shut up. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going on this journey that I'm on. And so eventually I found the practice of Om, and the funny thing is, like, people ask me sometimes, like, okay, well, Om is about desire. And if you're living based on desire, that must mean that you are hedonistic in some way, or you are irresponsible. You're irresponsible. You're only doing what you want to do. And it's just not true, because the practice of Om teaches connection and attunement and sensitivity and this way of relating with people where you can feel. Like, I didn't know that you could feel people. I didn't know. It was just like me in my little world, unhappy. And it's like, oh, I can open up and I can be connected to another person and I can feel what's happening for them. And then in that, you can't be mean in the ways I might have thought that somebody who only cared about desire and doing what they thought was what they wanted could be, because I can feel the impact. I can feel the impact. And when you feel the impact, you just can't do that. You just can't do that. And so then if you're feeling the impact, you're also feeling the impact of where I was, my mental state on the people around me. And if I'm depressed and I'm anxious, that's what other people are feeling. And I watched this documentary called I Am, and it talked about these, I don't know, it was some scientific experiment where the cells in a petri dish like impacted the other cells, and then it drew the correlation to like my thoughts and feelings are impacting other people's thoughts. And I was like, wait a second, if I'm depressed, that all that does is spread depression. If I'm miserable, all that does is spread misery. I thought I was helping the world by being unhappy because other people are unhappy, but the opposite is happening. I am only adding to the misery of the world. I'm only adding to the misery of the world. And then that sucks. That sucks. I'm like, wait a second, my whole life, all I did was do good. And once I did enough good and the world was saved somehow miraculously by me, I would be happy. And it's like, okay, got to rethink this. I got to rethink this. There has to be another way. And so yeah, you know, I had to find another way, and I had to learn how to be, how to not spread more misery. I had to learn how to spread a little joy. So I had to find it in myself. And then one amazing thing about Om and Eros is that one of the things that I learned is that you can only empty when you're full. You can only empty when you're full. And so there's this principle of circulation. So if you're not full, that means you better fill up. And then once you're full, then you can empty. And if you're trying to, you know, do service, as I always thought I was, from a place of emptiness where I didn't have the resources, like back when I was 22, trying to save these kids, you know, just arrogant enough to think that I'm going to save the lives of these children who are suffering. Like, who am I to think that? I was doing it totally, like, I didn't know anything. Yes, I knew, you know, I was doing my master's classes and I was learning all the things you have to learn. But myself and very few of my coworkers actually had like a ground. Some people did, but a lot of us were just running on fumes, trying to do good in the world. And unfortunately, that doesn't do a lot of good. And that took me a long time to admit. I'd be like, no, I am a good person. And like, yes, I was a good person. We're all good people. I am saving the world. No, I'm not. I am adding more misery into the world because I won't take the time to figure out what I actually need to be a filled up human being. And then when you're a filled up human being, guess what? You're not hedonistic, selfish, and taking. You get exactly what you need, and then you offer it back into the world. And so that was huge for me. And then my life looks different than I thought it would look. But I actually I know for certain that I am of more of service in the world. And I'm actually of greater benefit in the world today than I was when I was teaching special ed kids in the Bronx. I know that. I know that I offer more. I know that just by waking up each day and having a touch point of joy, a touch point where I am filled up and I can pour out on, people I talk to, people I walk by, that is of greater benefit than anything I was doing before. And I mean, I was the president of the community service club in high school. I did all those food drives. We organized all the, I did so much. And not that it was bad, but it wasn't, I didn't know what I knew. I didn't know what I knew now. And then it's like all of these things that I've learned over the years, starting with, just having that, like, wait a second, there can be joy in the world, and there can be joy even when you don't have a lot. It's not dependent on material resources. And it's not dependent on other people. I had to learn it on my own. I had to learn it. I had to find it on my own. And then from there, it just naturally pours out and overflows. If anybody has any questions at any time, you are welcome to hop in. Like I said, there is no host, so there's nobody that's going to be like, now is the question time. It's just me. So hop in anytime at all on any platform. Somebody will send it to me if you send in a question on Instagram, or I don't know where else we're streaming, but feel free at any moment. Questions, comments. I'm very flexible and open. So anyway, that is what I wanted to start with. And then I can say more about, service and what it can look like from here and from this place. And, from as simple as walking around feeling filled up and happy and full of joy, and knowing that that's adding, like, those little cells in the petri dish in the movie, like, that it does have an impact in the world. So knowing that and I still do. Did you have
Yeah, I just wanted to say something
okay.
before you go on.
Yeah.
I was in a 600 school in the Bronx. So I know what you went through, because I actually was one of those students. They called me maladjusted, because I fought all the time. I was angry, and I was an abused child. So, and I was angry. And that was my favorite school of all the schools I went to, because it wasn't quite 30 kids at that time. It was more like 20, where the mainstream had 30. So I exceeded in this 600 school, right? And they wanted to put me back into the mainstream. I wound up dropping out. You know? But I know what you went through. I used to help the teacher, get the kids together. All right, I'll help you. Sounds like Rachel, what she used to do to me. But I just had to laugh. It's like, I know what you went through, and that was a lot to go through for somebody who is not used to them badass kids, okay? Because I was one of those badass kids, just not satisfied with life. And I was also diagnosed with depression all my life. So yeah. So I'm just going to tell you, I relate to you, and and it's amazing that you actually did help a lot. Those are the people you do help those children a lot, because I was helped a lot by teachers like you that probably wanted to, slit their wrist at the end of the day or something. Not, just to say it, but I was helped because they realized that those are the teachers that are more into wanting to change the world for whatever reason. I think we all want to change the world, but either way, those are the teachers that have a lot more empathy than most people. So, and that's what I've always felt about you. You're an empath, so am I. So I can feel you all the time, So yeah, thank you. I just wanted to put that in there and insert that. I was one of the badass kids.
Cyrus. Yeah, it's so funny because it's in the education world, I know that a lot of people do enter it wanting to do a lot of good. And it is an area that needs a lot of people who want to do a lot of good, because it's our children, it's the world's children. And then they're not. And I'm always like, oh, if only people, teachers and caregivers and everybody knew how to have what they needed to be filled up enough that they could actually, that's what the world needs. And I was a stressed out, frenetic, anxious teacher, and a lot of my coworkers were, and I was just like, oh, wow, this isn't, um, this isn't working in the world. So anyways, okay, we got a question from someone on Facebook. What would you tell your younger self now, knowing what you know? So I think it's like it's so hard because I think just like that there's another way possible, and it's not always apparent. It's not easy to find in the world of appearances. You have to look a little deeper, and it's not always it's so crazy to me because it's not valued in the world of appearances. People don't, like I said, people are like, oh, well, you do something desire based. Doesn't that mean that you're selfish? It's like, no, it's the exact opposite. It's completely the opposite of being selfish. But it looks a certain, or people have ideas about it because of how it sounds in the appearance world. And so, you have to be willing to not do what almost everybody is going to tell you to do, what the whole every, not every movie, because there is the movie I Am, which taught me a different way, which told me there was something different I could pursue. But most of the movies you watch are like, these are the things you do to reach happiness. You have you have that romance, and then you are in love, and then that is it, and then you're unhappy because you don't have that, because it doesn't work like the movies. You can't have it the way the movies have it. So it's like there is another way possible, and you have to be willing to give up some things to have it, but what you get in return is so much more. It's so much more. And you don't know that. You don't, there's no way to understand that until you've done it, and you have to be willing to, dive in and have some faith. You got to have some faith to try it. Russell.
I was thinking about it's the shift in when it happened in me from it's like from I deserve to desire. Like deserve is sort of like yes and no, and it's I'm right and you're wrong, or it's you're not doing it right. And then desire has this quality of fluidity about it. You have the desire and then it goes away, and um, uh, there was this shift of when you realize that other people don't deserve it either, or that what they have is desire, and they don't understand its um, its granularity. Anyway, what happened to me is it started to be really interesting to make other people's dreams come true.
Hmm.
And because nobody wants to win anger. So and then so that was just sort of like my version of exactly this thing of like, it isn't about me, but it's about us. And so when it's about us, then it can be sort of hedonistic again, because if both of us don't win, then it's not a win. It's not about winning anyway. Um, but it's a way of like broadening your scope or including other people in your neighborhood. And then once you get this rolling, then it's like at one point I worked, I was massage, and I felt I was a massage therapist. And so when I worked on people, I felt like I was not working on them. I was working on the people that they knew. And I just think it cascades like that.
Yeah. Thanks, Russell. I think one thing we say a lot around here is like arise for the need of the time. And to me, that's a lot of what service is. And it's like, what is needed in this moment? And which is true in massage work. It's true in a lot of things, but it's like, can you look around and do whatever it is that's needed? And that's true service. And sometimes that's, giving someone a cup of tea or giving out $1 on the street when someone asks for $1. And sometimes it's, to stepping into a leadership role because that's what's needed. It's like whatever is needed, and that's true service, the ability and the willingness to arise for whatever is needed in that exact moment. And to be able to see that, you have to be, you can't be stuck in your mind like I used to be, wondering if I was doing a good job, thinking about just struggling with endless anxious thoughts. Like you don't see what the world needs. You don't see what anybody needs. You can't see outside of yourself. And so that's really where not living, people think that a life of desire and a life with Eros in it might be selfish, but it's actually the opposite. If you have enough of that, if you are full enough that you're not stuck in your own self, then that's actually when you're far less selfish than any other point I was in my life, where I was only worried about how it might look or what other people might think of me, or, try to do, I'm doing a good job. I'm trying to do a good job, but trying to do a good job is kind of a selfish way to live. Do a good job for what? Like based on some idea you have of what someone else might want you to do or what someone else might think of you. Like, that's ridiculous, but that is how I lived. And it's like, oh no, get that out of the way. Like, if you can get out of that sense of self of being good, doing good, looking good, then that's when that's actually where you wind up being less selfish, which, the world doesn't always like that. Like, some people in my life really like it when I'm trying to do a good job, because then I do exactly what I know that they want of me. But sometimes what they want of me isn't what's actually best in the moment or in the world or for all beings. It's just going to make one person happy for a moment of, not ultimately beneficial for me, for them, for the world. But they get a hit of what they want. Like, ultimately that's more selfish than actually letting go of that, trying to make a person happy.
As you start to include more people, not everybody gets what they want, and then it becomes a democracy. Oh, I had this cool other thing. I just lost it. Oh well. Okay, I'll come back.
I think Shannon has a question. She's not able to raise her hand.
Hi, Courtney. I love that you touched on the difference in how things feel when you're doing service from a place of being filled up versus not. And that you have to, I think most people don't understand that until they've had that experience, like experientially, like knowing it in your body, how it feels, the difference. Because I think that's definitely true. And I've done a lot of things in my life from obligation or because I thought it was what I was supposed to do. And I'm not going to discount that. Like, I can still do good things in the world, even if I don't feel great myself. Like, that's still possible, but the difference in exponentially what's possible and what amount of good that can be done and how it can feel when I'm doing service from a place of being filled up is really palpable. And it also not only can be bigger and feels better, but you can bring other people along, like on the ride, like they can feel, and you can have a whole wave, and it just expands so much. So thank you for touching on that. The question I wanted to ask you is, like, I I know you, and I know you've done a lot of different kinds of service. You talked about teaching children, and I know you're involved in feeding people that don't necessarily on the day to day eat yummy, nutritious meals. And um, like there's been things of giving clothing to people who need clothing. Do you have a favorite form of service? Is my question. Is there one that really gets you?
A great question. I don't know that there's one that really gets me. I think it's really kind of what I was saying before, like arising for the need of the time. And so like I do a lot with Free Food Harlem. I volunteer there about twice a week, and I've done not all the different roles. Well, no, I've never done the trash, but I I don't like doing the trash in New York because I am afraid of rats, but I've done the dishes. I don't usually do the food runs because I can't quite lift all the heavy things. But I've helped in the kitchen, I've helped on the floor, I've helped with setup, I've served people, I've cleaned the bathrooms, I've done a lot of different roles there. And it's funny because there's some, and sometimes I'll do only serving in the dining hall for a really long time in the dining room. And that for me is wild because as most of you have heard me share about before, and some of you know from having known me for a while, I was very shy and very quiet. Talking to anybody was a challenge. So talking to people that are so very different from me that I would never have encountered in my upper middle class suburban upbringing, which in Harlem in a free restaurant is very different than a lot of the people that I meet. And I learned how to talk to people. I learned to like all of those fears of like, I don't know how to talk to people different than me got to come away because I got to learn how to relate human to human, person to person. And like last night, I was in the kitchen for a while, and then I went and I wanted to try the dessert because it was a fruit dessert, and usually the dessert has flour in it. I don't eat flour. And so I got to eat the dessert tonight. And so I went and I sat down at a table with some of our regulars and just chatted. The dad of these two kids was telling me about a movie. It was just like, that's so wild. Like I never would have thought I'd be sitting down and eating with people so very different from me. And it's like, oh, and that is service. Like there's the part of me that's like, I must not sit down until all of the people have been fed. And then it is time for family meal where the volunteers eat because I must continue to serve and help people. And it's like, no, sit down and talk to some of the guests. Like that's part of service. And relating to people and that there isn't a difference because I'm one of the volunteers and you are one of the people that comes and eats. No, we're all people. We all eat. We all do, and this particular family is so interesting because it's a dad and his two kids. One is 12 and one is 15. And they came for years. And then one day the kids were like, we don't want to sit and eat. We want to volunteer. This is boring to just sit here and eat the food. And now they came late yesterday. So they just sat and ate and they didn't volunteer, but I hadn't seen them do it in a while. And they were like, yeah, I know. We'll be back Friday. We'll be volunteering. He's like 12 years old. He's like, I'm the boss of the kitchen. He'll like stand there and order all the servers around and he has a blast. And it's like, that's happened with a couple of the families that come. The kids are just like, I'd much rather be serving. Like I had enough food. You guys fed me for long enough. Like I want to, like, this would be more fun. And so seeing that is really great. And then a lot of time I'm just in the kitchen because I'm not a cook, but I'm like a good communicator. And we get a lot of new volunteers and they're in the kitchen and kitchen. I don't know who's worked in a kitchen. I know some of you have worked in kitchens. It gets intense back there. And so when you have a chef trying to do like 300 meals and you have brand new volunteers working with the chef, like you need someone who knows a little. So I am a lot of times just back there communicating and I'm like, am I even doing anything? I'm just like, chef says something, translate it for the volunteers so that it can happen because he's doing so many things all at once. And sometimes I'm like, I should be out serving people. I am just standing here. It's not even stressful, like, how do I know it's good? But it's like, oh no, that's actually what's needed. And that's what's going to make the food get out in a way that feels good for everybody, for volunteers, for servers, for the people eating. Like that's what's going to help. So it's like, actually, okay, let me look around and see and what is needed and where. So I'm happy in many roles of service, but really it's like when I can actually be in that place where I can see what's needed. Like I love to just look out and find a hole and then fill it. Like this is what's needed right now. This bathroom needs cleaning. This, Eros talks needs a talker today, like where do I go? What's needed and what will make it all go together. So that is what I think. Shannon, thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Courtney. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I can keep talking. I'll figure out something else to talk about. Yes, Russell.
The thing I thought of is just sort of just a math thing that when if you're deprived or was it unfull, let's just do that, and you get full, at some point the ability to receive what's missing, you can turn into gratitude. I can turn it into gratitude anyway. And so I look around for, if I'm short on gratitude, I sort of like, what am I not receiving that I could be grateful for so that I could like turn it back around? But I think that's exactly what those kids were doing. They got fed and says, no. I wanna turn this around and like, pay it forward kind of thing. Cool.
Yeah, one thing I've learned too is like it's just some of it, I've had years of practice of Om, and years of practice in Om and years of practice being in the world of Eros, in a variety of different jobs and positions, and so it's fascinating to see like what was I going to say? Like each step of the way and getting a little bit more filled up and acknowledging a little bit more. And then only just recently was I like, oh, wait, a lot of it is really just making a commitment to showing up as a joyful human. Like I just had to change, like I had to decide. I had to spend years getting saturated in Eros and years of oming daily. And then one day it's like, wait a second, I have enough. I have a lot. I can continue to find complaint. I can continue to find things wrong. I can continue to be irritated. The same things are happening around me, both in the larger world and in my smaller world. Like the same irritations happen. Somebody doesn't do their dishes. I'm cleaning the bathroom every day. Other people could be like, all of that still happens. It doesn't go away. But I'm like, me being irritated about it versus me being joyful with that happening. And I can still adjust people, like I said, but I don't have, like, I'm the only one suffering. Like, they don't care. People don't care if I'm yelling at them, do your dish, versus feeling happy within my own soul saying, hey, can you do your dish? It doesn't matter to there. I'm the only one suffering. And so in a lot of ways, it was a lot of years of practice of knowing what it feels like to be full. And then it's also like, in some ways, just a commitment to really be of service in the world, because all of that, again, it's just me and my ideas of how the world should go and how the world should be and how people should treat me. They should do their dishes because otherwise I will be unhappy, that's kind of silly, that's just me and my own self and my own desire to have the world go a certain way, which again is so funny on that idea of like, in the world of appearances, once everything is set a certain way, once everybody cleans up after themselves, then I will show up as joyful. Well, I don't want to live my life based on other people showing up I like showing up a certain way. And so it's like filling up enough, having enough Eros, doing enough practice, and then just being committed no matter what to be a human being of service every single day, doing what's needed in the world in whatever way it is that I can't do everything. There's a lot of things I don't know how to do, but the things I know how to do, like, am I willing to do them? Am I willing? And if I don't know how to do things, but it's what's needed, am I willing to give it a shot? Am I willing to be in an uncomfortable, which is something huge that I've learned here. I mentioned I had a lot of different jobs, and some people will be like, I don't understand. How come? Like, how did you become an event manager? Or how did you run a retreat center? Or how are you a publisher? You were just an elementary school teacher. And it's like, because I was willing, because I showed up and I was willing to potentially fail and try things. And then along the way, be humble enough to learn like have enough humility to be like, oh, I messed that one up, which was huge for me. I didn't want to do anything I didn't know how to do when I got here. I only wanted to do it if I already knew it. And that's a small life to live. And so it's like, be willing and try. And then as you do that, there's more opportunities to be filled up. And there's more opportunities to be of service. And there's more opportunities to share in the world. So I don't know. That's what I've got. We have a few minutes. If anybody wants to ask a question or say anything, or if you have something you'd like me to talk about, I'm happy to keep talking, but that's what I've got for today.
We can also move on to reflections if that feels like what you'd like to do too.
That's great with me. I wasn't going to have a host, so I was going to have reflection. Let's do it.
I got you.
Go for it, Shannon. You can do it.
Does anyone have a reflection they'd like to give Courtenay for her brilliant talk?
Hi, Courtenay. This is Iris. There's such authenticity coming out of you. Like, it hits me right in my heart. I feel all the bubbles that you feel, and it just feels so authentic. The story, the line, things that would have probably years ago made me embarrassed. It's not so pretty and all that stuff, but it's so authentic, so it's more real, and something more palatable. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Iris. Thanks for being on. It's great to see you and feel you.
Jack, did you have your hand up?
I did, but Mary Ann got hers up first. But I was just going to mention that, what you're talking about is being egoless, and doing in the Buddhist philosophy, they talk about bodhicitta as wanting to be a help for others, and not, being selfless, right? And I would, at your beginning story, you were doing things because you were trying to be a good person. Your motivation was to improve, to make it good for yourself, kind of thing. But when you change, after your experiences, you changed and kind of dropped that ego motivation and started doing things, like you just show up and you're going to help out whatever needs to be helped, rather than going in with a predetermined, I'm going to do this and it's going to be good for everybody. So it was really a great story and a great sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it in Buddhism. It's like get out of suffering, the causes of suffering, and then get others out of suffering. It's not like stay suffering and help others. Like, that doesn't work, right? Like when I learned that in Buddhism, I was like, oh, I don't know why they don't teach us that everywhere. I don't know why that's not common knowledge, because that makes a lot of sense. You can't do the world first. You just can't. Thank you.
Mary Ann's next.
Hey there. I love this. It was so beautiful. And the thing that stood out to me was when you had the quandary, or the question of what it would be like if the teachers were more filled up, and how much more they could give to these kids that are filled up but empty at the same time because of their circumstances. And I just, especially special needs kids, and they need a lot of attention. So I just thought, what a beautiful thought of how can we fill the world up more, especially women, and make it a better place. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Great to see you. Well, all right. That will do it for today. Thank you all so much for coming. That was a lot of fun. And oh, hi, Stephen.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.